Okay, so I need to tell you something. And honestly, I think this could completely shift how you move through the next few days. Because today, March 24th, something is happening in the sky that I don't think you're prepared for. And I don't say that to alarm you. I say it because I genuinely believe most people are going to walk right through this moment without realizing what it's asking of them. The moon in Capricorn is forming an exact square with Venus in Aries. And if that sounds like astrology jargon, just stay with me. Because what this actually means for your relationships, your desires, and the way you show up for yourself right now is something you need to hear. This isn't a soft, forgettable transit. A square is friction. It's pressure. It's the universe placing two wildly different energies in direct tension with each other and watching what you do about it. And here's the part that's really been sitting with me. This is one of those alignments where the people who understand what's happening can actually use it, and the people who don't, they'll just feel it as confusion, conflict, or this low-grade emotional ache they can't explain. That's why I wanted to make this today, because you deserve to know what's actually going on. Now, if you've been feeling something strange lately, like you're being pulled in two directions at once, like part of you wants to push forward and part of you wants to lock down and protect yourself, I really need you to stay with me on this one. There's a very specific cosmic reason that's happening, and I'm going to walk you through it. But first, let me explain why today, March 24th, matters so much. Because the timing of this square is not random. And to understand what it's actually triggering, you need to know what's been building underneath the surface. So here's what I think most people are completely missing right now. This moment didn't just arrive out of nowhere. The tension you're feeling today, in your relationships, your sense of self-worth, your desires, it's been building for weeks. And if you've been paying attention, you've already felt it rising. Think back to early March. Did things feel unusually heavy? Like you were wading through something thick? Like decisions that should have been simple suddenly felt loaded with invisible weight? That wasn't just you being dramatic. That wasn't random stress or a bad stretch of days. I genuinely believe that was a preparation phase. The cosmos clearing the emotional ground so that this moment right here, this square today, would land with its full force. And maybe you notice things getting stirred up in your closest relationships. Maybe old conversations resurfaced. Maybe something that felt resolved started feeling unresolved again. Maybe you found yourself wanting more freedom, more connection, more honesty, but also wanting to hold back, to stay safe, to not rock the boat. That push and pull, that is the exact energy that peaks today, because right now, the moon is in Capricorn. Capricorn moon energy is about structure, discipline, emotional restraint. It's the part of you that says, keep it together, be responsible. Don't let your feelings make the decisions. It's the part of you that prioritizes stability and control, sometimes at the cost of what you actually feel. And I've been sitting with this myself lately. That instinct to hold it all together on the outside, even when something inside is clearly asking for more room to breathe. And Venus is in Aries. Venus in Aries is the complete opposite impulse. It's desire that doesn't apologize. It's attraction that moves fast. It's the part of you that says, I want what I want. I want it now, and I'm not interested in waiting for permission. It's bold. It's passionate. It's a little impatient, and it is absolutely not interested in playing it safe. When these two energies form a square, which is a hard friction-based aspect, they're not flowing together, they're colliding. And what that collision produces is this internal standoff, the part of you that wants to feel something deeply versus the part of you that's afraid of what feeling it might actually cost you. Does that land? Because this isn't abstract. This is playing out in real time, right now, today, inside you and in the dynamics around you. And here's something I think is genuinely beautiful about this, even though it doesn't feel beautiful in the moment. The square is not a punishment. It's not the universe telling you something is wrong with you or your relationships. What a square actually does is force clarity. It takes two energies that could theoretically coexist and puts them under enough pressure that you can no longer avoid figuring out where you actually stand. And that clarity, as uncomfortable as it is exactly what moves you forward. You're already feeling it. And here's how I know. Let me ask you something. Have you found yourself unusually reactive today, or even in the past couple of days as this energy built toward exactness? Maybe someone said something small and it landed harder than it should have. Maybe you felt a sudden, almost irrational need to assert yourself in a situation where you'd normally stay quiet, or the opposite. Maybe you felt yourself shutting down completely, withdrawing, choosing silence over honesty because confrontation felt like more than you could handle right now. Some people are waking up today with this restless dissatisfaction, not because anything catastrophic happened, but because Venus in Aries is making it impossible to pretend you're fine with things you're genuinely not fine with. That energy is turning up the volume on your authentic desires and your authentic frustrations right now, in this exact moment. Others are feeling the Capricorn moon more strongly. This tight impulse to control the emotional temperature of everything, to manage how you come across, to make sure you look composed even when you're anything but. There might be this quiet, slightly cold undercurrent running beneath your whole day, a sense of needing to hold the line, even when holding the line means holding yourself back from something that actually matters to you. And if you're experiencing both of those at once, the fire and the freeze, the want and the withhold, then you are feeling this square in its full expression. And that, right there, is exactly what today is asking you to reckon with. Now, I need to tell you about the 3 signs this square is hitting the hardest, because not everyone is feeling this in the same place. And if you happen to be one of these 3, what's being activated in your life right now is something I think you really need to hear. Capricorn. The wall you built is now the thing blocking your own door. If you're a Capricorn, whether that's your sun, moon, or rising, I need you to really pay attention to this part, because the moon is moving through your sign right now, and that makes this transit extraordinarily personal for you. This isn't just an external tension. This is happening inside you, at the deepest level of how you relate to your own emotions. Here's what I think has been going on for you lately. You've been so committed to being reliable, to being the one who holds everything together, to meeting your responsibilities without complaint, that somewhere along the way you started treating your own feelings as a liability, like they were things to be managed rather than things to be listened to. And for a while, maybe that worked. Maybe it even felt like strength. But the moon in your sign squaring, Venus in Aries, is essentially pulling the emergency brake on that pattern. Because Venus in Aries represents everything Capricorn energy tends to deprioritize: desire, spontaneity, the right to want things simply because you want them, not because they make logical sense or fit neatly into your long-term plan. And right now, today, those 2 parts of you are in direct confrontation. The part that knows how to endure and the part that is done enduring. The part that values security and the part that is craving something alive and real and honest. This square is asking you a specific question, Capricorn. And the question is, what have you been suppressing in the name of being responsible? What have you been telling yourself you don't have time for, or don't deserve, or can deal with later? And how long has later been the answer? Because here's what I really want you to hear. Emotional restraint is not the same as emotional wisdom. And there's a difference between being disciplined and being shut down. Today's energy is putting that distinction directly in front of you and asking you to be honest about which side of that line you've been living on. This is uncomfortable, I know, but the discomfort is the point. It's showing you exactly where the armor has gotten too heavy. Aries. The thing you want is real, and so is the price. Now, if you're an Aries, sun, moon, or rising, today hits you from a completely different angle. Venus is in your sign right now. That means your personal magnetism is at a peak. Your desires are loud and clear. You know what you want, you know you deserve it, and you are not remotely interested in apologizing for any of it. And honestly, that energy is incredible. But the Capricorn moon squaring your Venus is doing something important. It's asking you to slow down just enough to make sure the thing you're chasing is actually built on something real. Because Venus in Aries can sometimes fall in love with the idea of what it wants before it's fully thought through the reality of what that looks like day to day, month to month, year to year. And this square, this friction, is the universe essentially saying, I see your desire, Aries. I'm not asking you to abandon it. I'm asking you to make sure it can hold weight. The Capricorn moon represents structure, longevity, the kinds of foundations that don't crumble the moment things get difficult. And the question it's putting to your Venus right now is simple. Are you building towards something or just running towards something because it feels exciting? That's not a criticism. That's a calibration. And for Aries especially, this square is actually a gift because it's giving you the chance to take that desire you feel so powerfully and ask whether you're willing to do the patient, unsexy work required to actually make it real. If the answer is yes, if this thing you want is worth discipline, not just excitement, then today is the day that becomes clear to you. Libra. The balance you've been keeping is finally becoming unstable. And if you're a Libra, the moon in Capricorn and Venus in Aries are forming a direct opposition across your relationship axis. This is extraordinarily activated territory for you right now. Because Libra energy is always trying to find the middle ground, always trying to make sure everyone is okay, always trying to maintain harmony, sometimes at significant cost to your own authentic needs. But the Venus in Aries energy that's squaring the Capricorn moon is pulling hard against that tendency today. Venus in Aries doesn't do compromise for the sake of peace. It does honesty, even when honesty disrupts. And if there is a relationship in your life, romantic, professional, or otherwise, where you have been compromising too much for too long, today that is going to make itself very obvious in a way you can no longer politely ignore. The Capricorn moon is adding a layer of weight to this. It's asking, what structures have you built your relationships on, and are those structures actually holding? Because sometimes we construct the appearance of stability in our connections, routines, roles, expectations, and mistake that appearance for genuine security. And then something like this transit comes along and reveals the cracks that were always there underneath the surface. For Libra, this square is ultimately about a very specific kind of courage. The courage to stop managing how everyone else experiences you and start actually expressing what you experience. It's about choosing one genuine moment of honesty over 100 carefully managed moments of peacekeeping. That feels risky. I understand. But the imbalance you've been maintaining is quietly becoming its own kind of instability, what everyone needs to understand about today. So whether you're one of those three signs or not, there's something about this Moon-Venus square that everyone can work with. And it comes down to this. Today is a day for emotional honesty, not emotional management. It is not a day to swallow what you're feeling. It's not a day to be strategic about how you present yourself. It's not a day to smooth everything over and act like everything's fine when something inside you is clearly signaling that it isn't. Because the whole tension of this alignment, the whole point of what Capricorn moon and Venus and Aries are doing to each other right now, is that it's making the gap between how you're really feeling and how you're presenting yourself impossible to maintain. What does emotional honesty actually feel like under this energy? It's that thing that comes up in a conversation, and instead of filing it away to think about later, you actually say it. It might not be perfectly timed, it might not come out the way you planned, but it's real. And real has a quality to it that managed doesn't. That's the signal you're looking for today. Not drama, not confrontation for the sake of it, but that moment when you feel something true and you let yourself acknowledge it rather than override it. That's the small but significant action this transit is calling for. And here's what I've come to understand about these hard aspects. They don't stay exact forever. This square is happening right now today on March 24th. As the hours pass, the moon continues moving. The sharpness of this friction point eases, and the window of clarity it creates, that uncomfortable but genuinely clarifying window, begins to close. So if there's something you've been feeling that's been trying to surface, something in a relationship or in your relationship with yourself, today is the time. Not because you should create conflict, but because this energy is actively supporting you in finally saying the true thing, finally naming the thing you've been circling around for weeks or maybe months, the shadow side nobody talks about. Okay? I need to be honest about something because I think it's important. Every astrological alignment has a shadow side. And with Moon Square Venus, the shadow shows up in two very distinct ways. The first shadow is emotional shutdown. The Capricorn moon, at its most defended, stops feeling altogether. It decides that if feelings create problems, the solution is to stop having them, or at least to stop showing them. And under this transit, there's a real temptation for some people to go there, to decide the friction is too much and to simply go cold, to be very polite, very composed, very fine on the surface, while something that matters is quietly being buried. And I want to be direct about this. That is not strength. That is avoidance with good posture. And what gets buried doesn't disappear. It solidifies. It becomes distance in your relationships. It becomes that low-grade disconnection that you can't quite explain, but that sits there under everything. If you notice yourself moving toward shutdown today, that's the signal to do the opposite, to breathe into whatever you're feeling instead of around it. The second shadow is emotional implosion. Venus in Aries, at its most reactive, doesn't filter. It says everything it feels the moment it feels it, with full intensity and no particular consideration for timing or impact. And under a square, when the pressure builds, some people will release it all at once in a way that's more explosion than expression. Here's what I'd say about that. The desire to speak your truth is correct. The timing and delivery matter more than people think. There's a difference between being honest and being a flamethrower. One creates understanding, the other creates wreckage. And the goal today is understanding of yourself and with the people in your life. So if you feel that intensity rising, give yourself 5 minutes before you open your mouth. Just 5 minutes. Let it move through you slightly before you put it into words. The higher expression of this square, the thing it's actually capable of at its best, is this: the courage to be emotionally real without being emotionally reckless. That's the needle today is asking you to thread. And it's not easy, but it is profoundly worth it. Why this moment matters more than you think. Here's what I really want you to understand about today, March 24th. This isn't just a difficult day to get through. This is a turning point in how you relate to your own emotional reality. Because the patterns that are being pressured today, the way you suppress what you feel to maintain control, or the way you run toward what you want without counting the cost, those patterns have been shaping the quality of your relationships and your sense of self for a long time. And moments like this square are the moments when those patterns become visible, when the usual strategies stop working well enough to keep you comfortable, when something in you gets loud enough that you can't politely redirect your attention away from it. Think of it this way. You're standing at a very specific kind of crossroads today. One path is the familiar one, managing, containing, keeping the surface smooth, letting the feeling pass without addressing what it's telling you, and your life will continue. But there's a quiet cost to that path, and it accumulates. The other path is harder in this moment. It requires you to feel something fully enough to understand what it's actually asking of you, to acknowledge what you want or what you're not okay with or what you need to change, even if that acknowledgement creates temporary friction. Even if it means a conversation you've been putting off, or a decision you've been delaying, or simply admitting to yourself that something you've been calling fine really isn't. And I'm not saying this to create pressure. I'm saying this because I genuinely believe that the discomfort this square is generating today is actually doing you a favor. It's showing you something real. It's pulling back the curtain on something that needs your attention right now, not later. And the fact that you're watching this, the fact that something drew you here today, tells me you're already aware that something is asking to be looked at. So look at it. That's what today is for. You're allowed to feel what you feel. You're allowed to want what you want. You're allowed to decide that something in your life needs to be different and to take one honest step in that direction. Today is not the day to have everything figured out. It's the day to be real about where you actually are, what to actually do today. So practically speaking, what does it look like to work with this energy intentionally? Here's what I'd actually recommend. First, get honest with yourself before you get honest with anyone else. Sit with what you're actually feeling right now, not what you think you should be feeling, not what would be convenient to feel, what's actually there. Name it. Write it down if that helps. The Capricorn moon has a tendency to skip straight to analysis and problem solving without ever letting the feeling land. Don't do that today. Give yourself permission to feel it before you decide what to do with it. Second, identify the gap. Where in your life is there a difference between what you're presenting and what you're actually experiencing? Where are you performing fine when something more complicated is going on? That gap is exactly where this square is putting its pressure, and naming it honestly, even just to yourself, is a genuinely significant act under this energy. Third, choose one moment of real expression. It doesn't have to be enormous. It doesn't have to be the whole conversation you've been putting off for 3 months. But find one moment today to let something true surface without managing it into something safer. Say the thing that's been sitting in your throat. Ask for the thing you've been telling yourself you don't need. Acknowledge the thing you've been pretending you're okay with. And finally, notice what happens when you do. Because here's what I've found to be consistently true about these hard transits. When you actually work with them instead of around them, when you let the friction do what it's designed to do, the clarity that comes on the other side of it is real and lasting in a way that managed comfort never is. Sometimes the shift is immediate. Someone responds in a way that surprises you. A conversation you dreaded turns out to be the one that changes everything. Sometimes it's internal, a quiet but undeniable settling into a truth you'd been avoiding, and the relief that comes with finally just knowing where you stand. Either way, it's worth it. The square is not your enemy. It's a catalyst. And catalysts, by definition, only work when something actually moves. All right. If you've made it this far, I want to genuinely thank you for staying with me through all of this. I know this was a lot. I know it probably touched on some things that aren't entirely comfortable to sit with, and I hope it gave you something real to work with today. If this kind of content resonates with you, if understanding what's actually happening in the sky helps you understand what's actually happening inside you, I'd love for you to subscribe. This is the work I show up to do here, and knowing you're here for it genuinely means something to me. And please drop a comment below right now. Tell me, where is this square hitting you today? Is it in a relationship, in your sense of self-worth, in that gap between what you want and what you've been allowing yourself to ask for? I read everything, and I find those comments more meaningful than you probably realize. Take care of yourself today, and I'll see you in the next one.